Her name was Lola. She was a showgirl with yellow feathers in her hair and a dress cut down her there. She would merengue and do the cha-cha. And while she tried to be a star, Tony always tended bar across the crowded floor. They worked from 8 till 4. They were young and they had each other. Who could ask for more at the Copacabana? The hottest spot north of Havana. At the Copacabana. Music and passion were always the fashion at the Copa. They fell in love. His name was Rico.
Good afternoon, everyone. We are going to get started here in just a moment with a presentation from the Corvette team. So go ahead and grab a seat.
But Rico went a bit too far. Tony sailed across the bar and then the punches flew and chairs were smashed in two. There was blood and a single gunshot, but just who shot who at the Copacabana? The hottest spot north of Havana. At the Copacabana. Music and passion were always the fashion at the Copa. She lost her love. Her name is Lola. She was a showgirl, but that was 30 years ago when they used to have a show. Now it's a disco, but not for Lola. Still in the dress she used to wear, faded feathers in her hair. She sits there so refined and drinks herself half blind. She lost her youth and she lost her Tony. Now she's lost her mind at the Copacabana. The hottest spot north of Havana. At the Copacabana. Music and passion were always the fashion at the Copa. Don't fall in love. Don't fall in love.
Hello, everybody. Can you hear me? Up or down? Who is in here just because it's about 20 degrees cooler than it is outside? Most of you? Nobody really cares about a Corvette update, or you've already read it all and seen it all. I know afterwards you guys like to play Stump the Chump with us, so we'll have some of that, some Q&A. All right, we're going to get rolling, maybe. Okay, I'm Josh Holder. I'm the Vehicle Chief Engineer for Corvette. And I've got Harlan Charles, who needs no introduction up here with me. And Kirk Bennion, Exterior Design Manager. Okay, and you might recognize this guy. He is on his way here, I know he's going to be here, obviously, but he will be around the museum this weekend, and we're super proud that he has been inducted into the Hall of Fame, and also a little bit sad that he is retired, a well-deserved retirement. He left a long-lasting legacy on Corvette, of course, and to celebrate that legacy, it's coming through a little dark on the screen, but many of you know that we paid tribute to Zora with a picture of his head on the lower corner of the windshield. And we've replaced that now with an image of Taj, a well-deserved image of Taj. While Zora may have been thought of as one of the founders of Corvette, the first Corvette chief engineer, Taj is the chief engineer that finally brought the mid-engine Corvette to life and has a long legacy on it. So a well-deserved honor for Taj.
Yeah, so I think a lot of you know about this car. This is the special 30th anniversary Z06 in honor of the museum. And of course, Kirk Bennion worked on this with his team at design. And so make sure you take a look at that outside, and somebody's going to go home with that car. So that's pretty exciting. And it's a one-of-a-kind graphic package. So this is the part of the presentation where you have to hear me brag. So everybody likes that. But hey, Corvette, we always talk about the enthusiast magazines and things, but how about Consumer Reports? It was rated the most satisfying car with the highest percentage of people who would buy it again. Frankly, I don't know why it's not 100, but we'll take the first place. And also, #1 in residual value, and that's easy to get when you guys are selling them for more than you paid for them. Car and Driver rated Corvette once again 10 best. Actually, Corvette is the only sports. It's won 25 times because Corvette has been in the 10 best. All the way back to 1985. And this was at Edmunds long-term fleet. But anyway, they had a lot of times these long-term tests can come out hit or miss. This is one that says Corvette remains one of the best sports cars on the road and continues to be a great sports car to use every day. There's no more comfortable sports car on sale than the Corvette. We do it again in a heartbeat. And then Motor Authority rated the Z06 the best car to buy, of course. And what else do we have? Motor Trend ranked Corvette #1 in their premium performance coupe rankings. Corvette was first, ahead of the 911, which is becoming a trend. And then also, Motor Trend has been around 75 years, believe it or not, Motor Trend magazine, and they did a reader vote, what is the most iconic car in their 75-year history? So Corvette, we've had about 71 of the 75 years, and the Corvette was named the most iconic car against these 10 finalists as an easy choice as the best, most iconic car over this period. And they also reminded everybody that Corvette was the Motor Trend Car of the Year in '84 and '98 and in 2020. And so, sale, this is thanks to all of you. Corvette, this is the luxury sports car segment sales. At Corvette, we basically have almost 50% market share. So basically, it's all of us, it's Corvette versus everybody. Everybody else put together can almost catch up to Corvette. And we're also #1 in the under 35 age group, which is something we've always strived for, to get younger customers in to Corvette. And then the Corvette convertible is the #1 selling convertible in America on any convertible in any market segment. So thanks. We love the retractable hardtop convertible, of course, and everybody is showing it ahead of a lot of other convertibles in the market. I think you guys always like to see how we're doing overall. Again, E-Ray is really just getting going. We're finally up to our full production there. Z06 is really starting to crank too, and it's fun to see the colors. Stingray, #1 colors are Arctic White and Torch Red. Z06, black, Torch Red, and then white. On the E-Ray, you get the white and the Riptide Blue are the top colors. And then we're talking about racing a lot. I think this is the series we haven't talked about that much, the Fanatec GT World Challenge. We got Tommy Miller and Alec Udell. They've actually won 5 races of the 10 rounds so far. So we got a good chance there, and it's good to see not only in the classes we always watch, but here's another class where Corvette is doing really well. So I just want to remind everybody about the E-Ray a little bit. Who knows where you plug the E-Ray in? We always have to ask, because we still get that question now and then, of course. For those who don't know, you don't ever have to plug. E-Ray does not plug in. Josh's favorite question. But just a reminder, we have a 160 horsepower electric motor and a small block V8 in the back for a total of 655.
Is a 10.4, which means the E-Ray beat the Italian supercars.
So there you go. That's one of my favorite videos done by somebody else. And so the E-Ray in this Motor 1 got a 9.5 out of 10 score. They said it offers super hypercar speed for the fraction of the cost of a Ferrari or McLaren. And then USA called it, is it the world's best sports car? And then best performance car by The Drive, the award. And Motor Week, the public TV show, named it the best performance car in their Driver's Choice Awards as well. Another fun thing.
I'll grab it.
This is kind of a fun slow-mo. Too bad Cody's not here. Cody is the driver, one of our test engineers.
Look at the drift angle.
Yeah. I also like that he has the roof out. That's something I would do, too. All right. So let's go what's new for 25. Real quick, of course, the 3 new colors. We have the Stereo purple. We have the competition yellow, and you can see those outside. And then we're bringing back Sebring orange, which was our signature color on the 2019 01. Thank you. And then we even have this new habanero interior that goes well with that orange that you can see outside in the white 01. And then we have blue stitching, new blue stitch option. That's in the black 01. Outside. We've upgraded the steering wheel covers to leather on all Corvettes. So that's a nice thing. And then we have, you can see it better, this better outside, we have a new Z51 spoiler as well. So let's, oh yeah, the other last thing, we have new Z06 wheels, also a new 10-spoke wheel in 4 different finishes. So I think everybody's excited about the ZR1. Again, the ZR1 started actually as an option package in the 70s, pretty rare package. It actually cost $1,010.50. So I think, should we bring back the cents back? I don't know. Of course, everybody remembers the 1990 as the first, quote, modern ZR1, first 32-valve V8 Corvette. 2009 01 was the first supercharged Corvette, 638 horsepower, first with ceramic brakes and carbon fiber ground effects. And then the 2019 Corvette, 755 horsepower, the first to offer 01 with as a convertible as well, and had both transmissions available. But let's get into the new 01. For 2025. There you go.
I'm good. Is this mine? Oh, the clicker?
Okay, turn it over to Kirk for a design story.
Hello. Make sure this is working. Everyone can hear me all right? All right, great. You know, it's fun seeing those ZR1 images because him and I worked on most of those. And so those, anytime you worked on ZR1, that always raised everything to the next bar. It was just very impactful, very challenging, but a great car to work on. Also, what we've done, you've probably noticed on the car out front, there's a different hood configuration to it. You're now seeing 2 heat exchangers in the front with a big hood extractor. You know, we do that because we needed the extra cooling, but we also wanted the downforce for the front as well. And that, now looking at the back of the vehicle, you notice we brought back the split window. That was something that we felt would be iconic, but more so, it's actually a functional detail that helps the car. We have been running that center split on the race car probably for like the last year, I would say, in that, because the race team actually came to us and said, hey, we need the extra cooling for the engine back there. So we put this on there, but we didn't want to tell anybody. So we wanted to make sure when we debuted it to where you can see it as a body color accent, but it also can be a carbon fiber accent. Here's a better shot of it right there. And like I said, you have your options with it. Carbon is still big to us. You know, right now, I would say ZR1, you can get the whole carbon package with that car as a standard option. It's a big to-do. Sorry. Trying to get... Anyway, so the other new thing back here, can't get my clicker to work, is that we do have these scoops on the top, back of the rear hatch. We've been getting questions today on how does that affect the convertible? Does the convertible take a hit in performance? And that those scoops are very functional. We did a lot of tuning, working with the aero group, made those very efficient. So there's still a fresh air charger that goes into that area, but it's still equal to what the coupe has. So we're not giving up any performance for that. And that, like I said, there were some folks worried that we would, but there's enough air going through there that you're still keeping a very cool atmosphere, like temperature back there. The other one is the side inlet. You know, we did a lot of pressure mapping to find out where the best spot is to put the hole on the side of the car to actually get air to the rear brakes. And that takes testing, and like I said, we have different tools that allow us to do simulations and where we can kind of see where the best performance is. And we designed it in, obviously it's carbon. We like the exposed carbon. In its position on the car, I would tell you from a design aspect, we continued the horizontal plane because that helps make the car look leaner, also more dynamic. Harlan, is that my last slide? All right, sorry. So all right, now you get a better shot of what we're doing with the hood there and having the screen. You'll actually get, there's two different wickers that you can put in that opening. There's a flush wicker that if you're, let's say you're after top speed, and then there's a stood-up wicker that you're seating there that'll help pull air, give you more downforce for the front end. And in the rear of the vehicle, ZTK wing was huge for us in that, you know, when we were developing Z06, as you know, with its wing and its 700 pounds of downforce, that was a big deal. But, you know, when we were looking at the cars and where we started from and where we were going, we were kind of felt like there was another car there, meaning we felt like there was another aero package after the Z06. And that's when we started working on ZTK. ZTK is giving us 1,200 pounds of downforce in that, and it kind of gave us that third high wing option. Sorry. Whoop. So that gives you another shot at it. It's high enough off the back. You know, obviously there's some concern. You know, you're gonna, when you drive this car, you're gonna have to look underneath the wing and that, but we still think we've got ample vision there, so. Sorry. There we go. So now you can see the shot here. This is our side inlet. It's all exposed carbon. And I just wanted you to see, if you look at the back, the wickers there, the car will come with one standard wicker There is an accessory that if you wanted to add a taller wicker, there's actually a separate piece that goes in between the two that if you wanted to add a little bit more downforce, it's a polycarbonate piece. It's got a Jake logo on it. And here again, it just fulfills the line across the back. And then, of course, the R1, you know, it's always a pleasure to do the logos for this car because these logos become iconic. And that you'll be able to get the ZR1 badging in either bright or black. We kind of steered away from picking a color because then you kind of get, you're always trying to match the color of another car. And that's, we thought by having the two neutral colors, that would fit any other car. You can see it here on this lower location. The wheels are huge as well. This is our second gen carbon fiber wheel, in that the first one was a 5-spoke that you had in the Z06. This one we challenged our supplier, Carbon Revolution. I said we like the first gen wheel, but the second one we said we'd like it to look lighter, not only be lighter, but look lighter. So we're doing this 10-spoke wheel. We worked very hard with them on just getting a spoke down to like 10 mils in depth, maybe 4 mils thick, and that. So something around that proportion anyways to give us a much lighter looking wheel and a lighter performing wheel. The guys will tell you that are driving these cars, this wheel is half the weight of the aluminum wheel, and it's much stronger than the aluminum wheel. So the guys will tell us that the stiffness in the ride and everything helped the performance and lap times. This is our aluminum wheel. We use this. We use what we call a topology program. And the topology program identifies where the strengths and the weakness are in the dynamics of the wheel. And that, so when you first run the program, the shapes come out to be a little coral-like. They're kind of rough, organic almost in nature. In that, but what we're able to do is take those learnings and we streamline each one of the bridges to what you see there to make the wheel thinner but still keeping its strength. And we offer this in the Edge Blue is new for us. Of course, you'll be able to get gloss black. You'll be able to get a machine face. And I think we have a pearl nickel-like finish for that as well. And here's the lineup right there that you can see for the wheels. I would tell you, we feel like this is a very compelling lineup of wheels, gives you a lot of good choices. And the carbon wheel is epic for sure. Oh, and we've got the stitching in the back. That's always key. We've noticed with trend-wise that depending on what you do for color accents, whether it's the belts or the stripes on the exterior, you do have options with the stitching color. The stitching actually is big bang for the buck. Gives you a huge effect on the interior, depending on what color. Oh. All right, Harlan, I'm going to let you talk to this slide because you know better.
Yeah, this is just showing on the interior. We have ZR1 badging on the steering wheel, on the interior plaque, and on the sill plate, in addition to the special stitching.
In case you forgot what you were driving.
In case you forget, so you know exactly. Never forget. Okay, the next one. And then on the gauges, of course, with being a twin turbo, we have a new boost gauge as well on the interior gauges. And then the engine intake is that Edge Blue color. It's kind of the signature color for the ZR1. Keep going. And then all the ZR1s get the engine appearance package. So on the coupe, you get the Corvette. On the convertible, you get the window, so you could see the engine in both coupe and convertible. And here were our reveal cars. We have two of these. The two bottom ones are here today at the museum. We also had a competition yellow and an Asteria purple at the reveal. So go ahead, Josh.
Okay, my turn. All right, I get to talk about the cool stuff. If you're going to be here on Saturday, I think it's Saturday, I strongly encourage you to attend Jordan Lee's presentation. He'll be down here. Jordan Lee's the chief engineer of Small Block. He led this team of wizards that developed the LT7 engine. And we've worked for a little over a year now to get people used to, on an E-Ray, you don't plug it in. That's like the one message we want to take away. the one message I want you to take away from the ZR1, at least the LT7 engine part of the ZR1, is it's not an LT6 with turbos on it. So don't buy a Z06 and go home and throw some turbochargers on it and expect the same result. There was a lot more put into this engine. They were designed together to both as a pair. That's why we call them Gemini, the twins. It's also a nod to the astronauts. There's a bunch of reasons for that name. Really, we used it inside of General Motors because we have secret names for secret codes for code words for Corvettes. So sometimes we fool even the people working on the car. They have to come and ask us, what is this? You're on a need-to-know basis working on Corvette, especially early on, and that was the real reason we chose a code name for these two engines. But they were developed together, but with completely different missions. Obviously, the LT6 is the most powerful naturally aspirated V8 we've ever done. It serves its mission well. It wants to be visceral. It's perfectly placed in a car like a Z06 that's all about racetrack work. The LT7 was, if we boost an engine, if we turbocharge an engine for the first time in Corvette, we designed the architecture, the body structure in the Corvette to be able to install an engine at Bowling Green that had twin turbos on it. Now, we've talked about turbocharging Corvettes for a long time, and there are many challenges with turbocharging, but one of those challenges is packaging turbos in an efficient way on a front-engine car is very, very difficult. They generally would need to be mounted high because you've got two front tires that have to steer. They have a giant envelope that moves the control arms inboard and really sacrifices how wide the engine can be. So when we designed the C8, we knew we were going to do this, planned it from the beginning. The body structure that you have in a 8th generation Stingray is the same body structure that the ZR1 has. So all the family of 8th generation Corvette greatness planned from the beginning with this engine in mind. It does share the block casting. There's some different machining on it. It shares the forged steel crankshaft, the raw forging. There's some machining differences on the crankshaft because of the rotating mass and counterweights to balance the crank. It does have additional lubrication system. So the LT6 has a 6-stage dry sump scavenge pump. It's a real race car dry sump. We've talked a lot in here about. It's not a moist sump. It's not kind of a dry sump. It really is draw massive crankcase pressures to keep oil exactly where it needs to be. And on the LT7, hidden in plain sight was a 7th scavenge bay that no one really noticed. I guess you wouldn't unless you took an engine apart to check it out. But that one is meant for turbo lubrication. The turbos on the LT7 are huge, 76 millimeters, great big turbos. And we did a lot to minimize turbo lag. That's usually associated with turbocharging. The bigger the turbo, the more lag there is. This car is going to have a lot of power. It's going to be awkward to drive. We made sure that is not the case. So we have some clever tricks to minimize turbo lag. One of those comes with the physics of the turbo itself. You got that big impeller, that big compressor wheel. There's some inertia that goes with that. So once that turbo is spinning, we can keep it spinning with some clever tricks. One of those is feedback from a speed sensor mounted in the turbo that feeds back to the engine control system. And then we can alter boost with an electronically controlled wastegate. So the computer decides when to open and close that to maximize boost pressure. We do a bunch of other stuff from cam phasing to spark timing to all kinds of tricks so that when you're on the brake, headed for your first turn, when you clip the apex and are back on throttle, you get all the torque of an LT7, instant response. Of course, the big change in the engine, the single biggest change in the engine is the compression ratio. And I don't know what's going on here, but we've lowered the compression ratio from 12.5 to 1 in an LT6 to 9.8 to 1 in an LT7. So the piston and rod assembly have a very different design. And that's one of the things that brings this magic of power and torque. And to me, the torque is the more impressive thing here. So we have about 800 foot-pounds of torque from 3,000 RPM all the way to 7,000 RPM for a peak of 828 foot-pounds of torque. I'm almost wondering what's going to pop up here next. You can tell this is a well-rehearsed presentation, can't you? You know how Ray practices.
This is showing like the history of ZR1, how it would plot against the new ZR1.
And yes. I have an old ZR1, my wife and I do. I don't like to disparage ZR1s, but we've come a long way since 375 horsepower in 1990. If you look at this chart, it would tell you about 2,800 RPM. The LT7's making the same power as that car did at peak. So 1,064 horsepower. Maybe the clicker's working. 2019, 755 horsepower Monster LT5. I tell the story, I may have told some of you this, but the 2019 ZR1 is an awesome car. Some of you own some, so I don't have to tell you that. That car is so capable, such a monster, that we use that car to train our drivers through our different levels, progression, our development drivers. So to get through level 4, you have to be able to beat an autocross time with a 2019 C7 ZR1, and that's like bringing a cannon to a knife fight. That car is really not great at autocross. It's meant for road course, but the thought is if you can handle that car, you can handle anything. Not sure what's happening here. Nothing. Oh, something. We might need help back there.
How much horsepower is the new ZR1, Josh?
Did I mention it? Have you heard? 1,064 horsepower. So why 1,064? Why not 1,060? Why didn't you make a nice round number? And this is a nice round number, 1,064. The real reason is Jordan and his team, along with cooperation from all of us, had a common mission, and that was make as much power possible. That's what I talked about at the beginning when these two engines were shared together. Certainly we have a target that we developed the rest of the car around, but we didn't want to make that arbitrary. We wanted this engine to do everything possible. Some of you may have heard we upgraded our dyno facility in Pontiac, Michigan. We have a large dyno lab with many dynos in that building, but we had to upgrade a couple of them to be able to handle the LT7. After that extensive upgrade, through the final stages of calibration on an LT7, we managed to break the dyno. Not only did we break one of the dynos, as we're running the dynos, there's so much exhaust gas flow. The engine is an air pump. Right? It's in this case, a really efficient air pump. The more air it pumps, the more fuel you can put in it, the more power you can make. All that air has exhaust gas coming out as well. That's pretty warm. The turbos glow red when the engine's at full bore. And the exhaust stacks in the dyno will get so hot that they melt. So we have exhaust gas temperature sensors inside the dyno monitoring the exhaust stacks, and we often have to shut the dyno cell down. If it doesn't break the dyno input shaft, it overtemps the exhaust stacks in the dyno room. I already talked a little bit about the compressor, just some more facts. The turbine wheel is made from a material called MAR, and I'd never heard of that before until we were working on this turbo, but many of you may know what Inconel is. It's a very high-grade stainless steel, can maintain its mechanical properties at super high temperatures. MAR is a step above that. That turbine wheel sees temperatures that approach about 2/3 of the space shuttle tile on re-entry. The bearings in the turbo roll ball bearings to reduce friction. The turbine housing is integrated into the exhaust manifold. And the ports on the cylinder heads, which again are very different than the LT6, are directing that flow instead of up on the LT6 to go through the headers. They're going down into the integrated exhaust manifold, all pointed right at the compressor to shorten that path as much as possible. That's how one way we minimize lag. I know you guys are making fun of us up here with this clicker thing, like how hard is it to push a button?
Well, yeah, welcome to
so
our
here's what
rehearsal.
goes on. You'll push it, look away, and it'll advance 2 slides, which I think, anyway.
This is our rehearsal for Saturday.
It is. We'll try some batteries in this thing or something. Did you see a connecting rod and a piston? All right. Okay, so the one thing I want to point out, on the left is an LT7, and on the right is an LT6. And at first glance, they look kind of the same, but notice the wrist pin, boss, and bore around the piston itself. The piston is a dish piston. The beam section of the rod, full titanium rod, just like LT6, but it's a little bit shorter, and the beam section is much thicker. And it's to support a much thicker piston. So we're using a dish piston, but the thickness of the piston to the top ringland is all meant to handle the massive combustion pressures of an LT7. Wait for it. There it goes. All right, cylinder head similarly different. So on the left is the LT6, and on the right is the LT7. You can see much more open combustion chamber, just like LT6s. The cylinder heads are fully machined, CNC machined combustion chamber, intake ports, exhaust ports. The one thing that the LT7 has that the LT6 doesn't have around the combustion is port fuel injection as well. So both engines have exhaust side direct injection. We also use port fuel injection. We needed it to feed enough fuel to the LT7. Another fun fact. Don't tell anyone outside of here. We can keep a secret, right? If you were to find a place on the planet that you could exercise a ZR1 at full throttle, good luck to you finding that place. But if you could do that, it would burn a tank of fuel, 18.5 gallons, in a little over 9 minutes. So we need those extra injectors, and they're nearly wide open at that operating range. They also help emissions. So, hey, we're doing our part for the planet. They do help emissions. This is some of the competitors for ZR1, and I like that we have the AMG 1 down there. You can pick one of those up for 2.7 million-ish if you're in the market.
We think because it's 1063, they should call it the AMG 1 less.
One less.
Or we could call it the ZR1 more.
Yes. Anyway, there's really no supercar that the ZR1 doesn't compete with and likely dominate, and we plan to show that later on this year as we finish development of the ZR1. Kirk talked a lot about the aerodynamics, the ZTK package, as well as the carbon aero package that you can get that brings the big wing. Works together to generate 1,200 pounds of downforce at top speed. So think of like half a car sitting on top of the ZR1, keeping it pressed to the ground. It helps the tire, the suspension package, everything work on the ZR1. And we started out with a plan, like a lot of things on ZR1. We had a target. We achieved that target, and then we exceeded that target, and then we have to go back and do some more work to integrate this all together. Well, the rear wing was planned to use a similar wing, in fact, the same airfoil as the Z06. We were going to raise it up in the air a little more. We knew we had extractors coming out of the hood. There's a little more dirty, turbulent air flowing over the top of the car, so we'd get it up in the clean stream, and it would work just fine. What we found out is that when we changed the angle of attack of the wing to give more balance to the front, which now has more downforce because of the open hood, the wing would stall. So we ended up with the wing Kirk was talking about, all very purposeful. It's another example of you set a target, in this case, some years ago, develop the car the best it can be, revise those targets, update the rest of the car to match it, and you end up with something awesome like the 25 ZR1. Wait for it. Oh. Okay. With 1,064 horsepower comes a lot of heat. I talked about what happens in our dyno rooms. All that heat is going into the car, by the way. Glowing red turbos. We got to cool all that off. And there are 15 heat exchangers that do just that. You can see most of them on the rolling chassis out there if you've had a chance to take a look at that. The most impactful ones and the biggest change that Kirk talked about with the open hood are the two big radiators up front. The leading radiator is the intercooler heat exchanger. It's got the most valuable real estate. It's got big open face, and it's getting first blast of cool air. That's a dedicated coolant circuit. So we don't share that with engine coolant to cool off cylinder heads and everything else in the engine. That is just for the intercooler, just for compressed air combustion and reducing that temperature. Lower temperatures, by the way, make big power. I wonder what's up next. Oh, downforce comparison. All right, so this gives you an example of how the Corvettes line up in terms of downforce. At 186 miles an hour, sounds like a weird number. It's 300 kilometers per hour. It's loosely becoming an industry standard by which we all try to compare aerodynamics. It's a really hard comparison to make, but since we test these all the same way, this gives you a flavor of how the Corvettes line up and how much more powerful the ZR1 is. Chassis package, I do want to point out that the ZR1 fits between, it surrounds the Z06 in terms of ride stiffness. We call it ride frequency. And so if you were to line up the Corvettes, actually you'd start with a Stingray, so that would have the softest ride, then a Z51 Stingray, and then an E-Ray, and then a ZR1. So the standard ZR1 we tuned intentionally to be a little softer, a little more approachable. A lot of people like big power and are going to buy this car. Not everyone's going to take it on the track. Some of them will be here 5 years from now driving across the country in a Caravan. And so there is certainly a market for the car. It fits the mission of some previous ZR1s we've done. And then, of course, if you get the ZTK package with the cup tires, the stiffer springs, that's going to be right up around where the Z07 is on the Z06. Track purpose-built suspension and chassis tuning. Come on.
We are here tonight to celebrate an American icon, the Chevrolet Corvette.
All right, here's what some of the automotive press is saying about ZR1. My favorite line is the third one down. The 2025 Chevrolet Corvette ZR1 is America's 1,064 horsepower middle finger to Italy. All right, some other fun facts about the ZR1. I talked about the temperature of the turbine wheel. One other thing about the exhaust mass flow, air mass flow through the engine. The turbine fans rotated about 1.7 times the speed of sound, so that's the tip of the fan. And it would consume the volume of an Olympic swimming pool in about 4 minutes. So if you think of the giant hose you'd have to use to fill an Olympic swimming pool in 4 minutes, it gives you an idea of how much air the LT7 pumps. All of our test drivers, the very first time we took the ZR1 to Nürburgring, this was last year, the car's kind of coarse in its calibration. We give it percentages, and it's about 65-ish% finished. We've just started exercising it. And the first time out on the track, all 4 of our test drivers that were there that day working on the car went faster than 200 miles an hour. And a lot of the descriptions you get, which driving this car, or even riding in this car, is hard to describe. And so I'm not even going to try. Words don't really do it justice. But it basically eliminates straightaways. There is no track for which there's a traditional straightaway where you're just sitting there waiting to enter the next turn. It's blistering acceleration the entire time. And the next turn is there before you're generally ready for it if you're not used to driving a car like the ZR1. If you've ever been on one of those roller coasters that have the linear motor and you feel the acceleration, you can feel it in your chest cavity. You can feel the blood rushing to your back. That's what the ZR1 is like to drive, but not just for a 0 to 60 launch, for the entire time, generally all the way up to 200 miles an hour. It's just amazing. We expect a quarter mile time. Again, this is not a dragster, but it's very capable in under 9.7 seconds at about 150 miles an hour. All right, time for Q&A. You want to take some? Or should we just end it?
Should we do Q&A? Yeah, we probably should.
Okay. All right, I'll bet we have a few questions.
I saw the gentleman with the black shirt first.
In the 7th generation, when you guys came out with the ZR1, you guys made some groundbreaking revelations with the MRC and then brought that to other C7 Corvettes. Was there anything that through the development of the ZR1 for the 8th generation that you guys learned about that might be passed down to other Corvettes?
I would say that all Corvettes build upon themselves, and the ZR1 is no exception. Of course, we learn a lot about, especially extreme performance, about durability, about thermal management, about what this much energy transfer, to think about, I'm talking about the fuel used, the temperature of the exhaust, all that energy is in this transfer equation that, by the way, now brakes have to do. I didn't mention the brakes on the ZR1, which are the biggest brakes we've ever done. They're a new formulation of carbon ceramic rotor that's the most conductive composition of a carbon ceramic rotor we've ever done, so it can reject more heat, exactly what you need in a brake system. So it's things like that that might not immediately be ready for other Corvettes, especially entry Corvettes, because of price points and other factors to consider. But they make every Corvette after that better, and there's a lot of examples of where learning trickles into all Corvettes, even if it doesn't look as extreme or have the extreme mission of something like a ZR1. Doing that extreme work helps all cars.
Does anyone else have some questions?
Well, thank you very much. 2 questions. One is, what is the estimated release base price of the ZR1? And the other would be estimated production of the 25 ZR1 the first year.
Well, we'll release the price as soon as we know what it is. So you'll be the first to know. And for production, there's not going to be a limited set number that we're set to. I know there were some rumors out there. So our goal is to, of course, build as many as we can for people that want them. Obviously, you know, when we ramp up and you know, the parts we have for the ZR1 are very special. So obviously, it'll take a while to ramp up, but we're not limiting it to any number, and it's not a 1 year only either. It'll go for a while.
Question for you. How is the difference between the build of the LT6 versus the LT7 for the engine builders?
So they're both built in the Performance Build Center together. Obviously, the hardware is different. They assemble much the same. They have similar parts until you get to turbos and manifolds that are physically different to install. But while both engines were designed together, the Performance Build Center was processing plans to build those engines together. So the same will happen there. It may take incrementally more time, but not much more to build an LT7 just because of the content, but they'll build much the same way.
Okay, 2 short questions. First for Josh. Papenburg, when?
This fall.
Copy that.
So hold on for the rest of the group here. Papenburg, if you don't know, is where we do our top speed testing. It's the safest place for us. It's convenient. We usually go to Nürburgring anyway, so we can do chassis tuning. I cringe when I say Nürburgring because everyone's like, oh, well, they're going to go out there and set a lap time record and tell us what it is. We're probably not going to do that. What we are going to do is go to Nürburgring and develop Corvettes, including the ZR1. It's just a great all-in-one place to get all that work done. And in Germany is a track where we can exercise top speed. That's why we haven't announced it, because we haven't been there to do it. We have a pretty good idea what it's going to be, though. Oh, man. You guys are going to be blown away. But we will share video of that in-car footage. We'll do it both ways. This will be a legit run and average the speed.
And for Harlan, when is RPO PBC coming back for Z06?
Oh, for the PBC is performance is our engine build, and I don't have a date when that's coming back. Obviously, a lot of people are asking about it, and we could do that for both Z06 and Z01 eventually, but I don't know when we're going to be turning that back on yet.
I'll tell you, we are working on doing that. We want to do that, and we know a lot of you want to do that as well. Okay, if we turn it on, you'll get one? All right.
You promise? Everybody's a witness.
One of the reasons is because Performance Build Center was building an engine in there we couldn't tell you about. So it's hard to walk by and miss, are those hair dryers? No, that's not what those are.
Why no active aero?
Why no active aero? Our mission for this car was all-out performance, of course, as in a ZR1, and active aero can be super powerful. For those that don't know what active aerodynamics is, they're movable elements in the car. Aerodynamics is always a trade-off. Downforce is a trade-off with drag. Drag slows the car down. Downforce helps keeps it planted to the road. If you ask any development driver, would you like more downforce? You don't have to ask that question. Of course. The answer is always yes. And so when you get a lot of downforce, you can use active aerodynamics to help reduce some of that drag, make those elements movable. We chose to do the most efficient static aero that we possibly could, and that's exactly what we've done in the ZR1. It's the most efficient aero package we've ever done, so 1,200 pounds of downforce at top speed, but also super efficient at doing so. We chose to keep the complexity and a little bit of mass out of the ZR1 for now, so never say never about active aerodynamics. They certainly have a place in Formula One and other areas, but the mission on this car was to do as much as we could with the most efficient design possible.
Two questions. Did Michelin work with you on a special tire for this car? And the second question, most important, do you need a driver for the top speed test?
We should get Tom to Papenburg. That'd be cool. We have some volunteers already lined up to drive. I'd like to do it. There's actually a line of people, which tells you a lot about a car that can go as fast as this car is going to go. And we have so much confidence in it that there are plenty of people willing to go out there and exercise. Of course, wants to make some Corvette history, and they will. Whoever's driving this car will certainly do that. His first question was about, did Michelin develop a tire with us? So this is another example of where we do target setting, we achieve that target, and then we exceed that target, and then we have to go back and make some more changes. So the plan was, the ZR1 was going to share the same tire as the Z06, same construction. It turns out that when you make 1,064 horsepower and you have 1,200 pounds of downforce, that puts a lot of stresses on a tire, and Lee and the Michelin team are here, and they'll be nodding their heads if they're listening to this. It does put a lot of stresses on the tire, and so we had to change the construction of the tire. We're still going to keep it common with the Z06, and so that change will go across the board. There's another example of learning on a top-end Corvette how it trickles down, and a great example, I think, even though there was a lot of consternation when we realized we had to do this, changing a tire, Tom will know, obviously, is not taken lightly. People think you develop a car and then the last thing you do is put tires on it. It's almost the opposite. We designed the car around the tire. So we did have to make a change for construction to keep up with the performance of the ZR1. I should also mention, since we're talking tires, I don't want to forget, Kirk was showing you those awesome wheels, the forged aluminum wheel and the all-new carbon fiber wheel. The rear wheel bearing pattern, so the bolt circle diameter on the ZR1 is larger. That's another testament to how much load's going in the rear tire. So if you think you're going to upgrade one of your Corvettes with ZR1 wheels, you'll be disappointed. They won't fit. Now, of course, you could take it further and change more parts, but it's just an example of how constantly outdoing ourselves creates other change but makes the car better.
Could you discuss the engineering trades between supercharged and turbocharged in this design?
The question was supercharging versus turbocharging. One of the things that it's pretty cool is that the mid-engine architecture enabled us to do a turbo like this, which we couldn't have done in the front engine car. And then the other thing we found is the turbos are a lot more efficient and also better for consistent lap times over longer periods of time because of heat. And so you will get more constant best laps over and over in the turbocharging than you can with supercharging.
And turbochargers being more efficient is not really an industry secret. That's pretty well known. I mentioned our challenges with packaging turbos. That's why supercharging was a good choice for us. But when we designed the mid-engine Corvette, for the first time we could actually package turbos, and we chose that efficiency improvement that we could finally realize that the architecture would let us do. Kirk was talking about the inlets on the hatch for the coupe. And we should try to clear that up. So all Corvettes have 1,064 horsepower. SAE procedure followed to the letter on pump gas. You don't have to go to the dealer and get some special cal put in it that voids your warranty. These are fully backed by General Motors, by Chevrolet, by Corvette, tested just like any other engine, only breaking some dynos along the way, but fully backed by us from the factory, 1,064 horsepower. Those inlets on the hatch will do some things for the coupe in certain situations. So for example, in our SAE test procedure, we can't test ram air. That's not part of the procedure, but certainly those are providing some good ram air. They're in a spot on the car that's not getting hot outwash. They're also in a spot on the car that's getting pretty laminar, non-turbulent airflow. And in cool conditions, you will certainly notice some performance if you're in a situation to do that. The other thing it does help a little bit is with efficiency, so charge air efficiency. It would take longer to thermally soak that, which superchargers and turbochargers tend to do, than if they weren't there. So certainly purposeful and well-intended, but all ZR1s will have 1,064 horsepower.
Two questions. How hard is it to get something like this through upper management? And the second question is, when are we going to get our cousin back, the Camaro?
So I think the first question is, I think we've had great support for Corvette and the ZR1. As you saw the video, Mark Royce was the one who drove that car on the track for the introduction. He drove the coupe and Taj drove the convertible. So we've had, we're very lucky that we have great support for Corvette going forward. And on Camaro, that is something that I would love to see come back as well. And we have some ideas, but I have no announcement at this time.
On the E-Ray, what's the longevity of the battery pack and then complexity and cost to replace at some point in time?
So the E-Ray, that's a good question. E-Ray batteries, we have an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the batteries, but basically they should last the life of the car. Even if, for example, they lose a little bit percentage, you probably would never notice it. The way the E-Ray works, it's constantly charging up and discharging. So the only thing you might notice after a long, long time would be, you know, in your self mode, maybe you don't get the full 4 miles, maybe you get 3.8 or something like that. So we expect the batteries to never need to be replaced in the E-Ray.
And it should tell you something having a warranty that long, as conservative as General Motors is. We expect it to last much longer than that. And the other point Harlan made about the discharge and recharge of the battery, lithium-ion batteries do not sulfate like a lead-acid battery does. So they don't deteriorate, degrade in that way. And we know that this car is going to be on the road 70 plus years from now, just like all Corvettes are. And so the battery is designed with that in mind. As far as how much it will cost to replace it, that probably depends on when you replace it. Battery technology is constantly evolving, but the first time anyone would need to replace an E-Ray battery is a long, long time from now.
I'd just like to say that to the engineers, to your leadership team, to the Corvette team, to all of us, congratulations. You've knocked it out of the ballpark again with the Corvette.
Best question of the day. That's my favorite.
Is there anything left in the battery and the motor for the E-Ray, as in more than 160?
That's a loaded question. If you didn't hear it, he's asking if there's anything left in the E-Ray. If there was something left in the E-Ray, we would have given it to you. So we're not holding anything back. We're not going to send you a software update that will sell to you for a couple $1,000s like Tesla does. That opens up some more. If we had it, you'd have it. But at the same time, I wouldn't tell you that we think we've reached the peak of electrification in sports cars and don't want to do more. Certainly, we're always looking at ways to extract more performance, but we're not holding anything back in the E-Ray.
Question is, how much of the battery is left after a quarter-mile test?
I've had the opportunity, I should say, you know, I'm a servant of the people. I do drag strip passes and E-Rays for you guys, just to test them. And by the time you brake, if you do a 4/4, it wouldn't matter even if you did an 1/8 mile, but by the time you brake to make the turn to the staging lane, about half of what you spent getting down the drag strip is already put right back into the battery. And by the time you go from staging lane, you know, from the end of the track back down to stage, it's fully replenished. So you don't have to use Charge Plus or even worry about that on a drag strip pass. That's easy for an E-Ray.
Thank you. First off, thank you for doing this every year. Then question around how important sound is for us. Driving the Z06 every time is thrilling to hear. Could you maybe comment on, you know, the Gemini twins? How do you expect the sound relative to the Z06 for the ZR1?
Yeah, so I think, you know, those engines with the flat plane crank, they both sound great, but they are like different members of the family, where the Z06 might be more of the screamer in the family, and the ZR1's got a little bit more bass, a little bit more of a lower tone. And we have our own favorites amongst the two. We're always arguing about it, which one we like better, but they both have slightly different characters. But I think that's a big part of the fun of driving these cars is the sound of them also. I know that Z06, every time it starts up, you know, your neighbors love you, right? But anyway, no, seriously though, I think they both sound great, but they are different.
Yeah, the LT6 and the Z06 is the sweetheart for sound, in my opinion. It was also designed to sound good. We spent a lot of time going for that ultimate. The LT7 has a couple of giant turbos in the exhaust system. So those are pretty good physical mufflers. And in fact, to get as much out of we've got from the ZR1 and the LT7 and the ZR1 back is quite an accomplishment. So like Harlan said, I think you'll note if you hear the cars side by side, you'd notice that the LT7 is a little deeper, throatier, as you would expect with something that's got combustion pressures like that much power. But the ultimate for sound level is the LT6.
All right, we've got time for one more question.
Hi there. My question is regarding the offset of the wheels, specifically on the Z06 and the ZR1. You look at, say, like the 1LE Camaro when it was around, or Porsche GT car. They have a much more aggressive offset. The Corvette's kind of maybe, I don't know, 20 millimeters in or so. What's the thought process of not pushing that out a little bit more, perhaps?
Kirk and I were looking at each other. This is our favorite topic. We're always trying to push these out as far as we can. I will tell you that, especially when you look at, you could walk around the parking lot here and see some pretty cool aftermarket wheels on Corvettes with more, I'll call them more aggressive fitments. The good thing with the aftermarket is maybe you don't necessarily have to worry about tire chains in Europe or regulations for stone throw, things like that, that make it a little easier to do a more extreme offset tire and wheel. But we've gone as far as we can. We like aggressive-looking Corvettes as well, and we keep that in mind. And literally, Kirk will tell you, we debate every single millimeter, fractions of a millimeter, to get those as far out as we can, and to get the vertical clearance between the wheel opening and the tire as close as we can make it. Okay, I think that was the last question. We're all going to be around for 3 more days, so you don't have to rush the stage. You'll see us. Thank you, everybody.